Hey there, geographers. Welcome back to Mr. Sin channel. In this video, we're going to be going over the task verbs for the FRQs, what the 2020 FRQs are going to look like, and make sure you have a good understanding of what to expect when you're taking these FRQs this year. Now, if you haven't seen some of my other videos I've been posting recently, make sure you check those out. Those videos have been talking about the logistics of the prep work you got to do, the exam day itself, and I've also been doing a bunch of live streams for reviews. So check out some of those in the channel and consider subscribing. The first question is going to have two stimuli. It could be a map, it could be data, it could be a table, a chart, an infograph, and you're going to have 25 minutes to answer it. Now, that also includes the time of looking over the question. And the first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you read the data. Look at that map. Take some time. Don't just rush through. Spend some time and actually understand what you are looking at. That's going to be really important. Once you understand the information being presented to you, then go in and try to answer the question. Now, again, for this one, it's only on units 1 through 5. Those are the main units that this test is on. 6 and 7 can't be on it. Now, there could be some concepts like globalization or development. Those are overlying themes that are in all the units. But they're not going to be asking you about a specific developmental model from unit 6 or 7. So focus on units 1 through 5. Just be aware if there's overarching themes with unit 6 and 7 that those could be on it. But again, they're not going to ask you specifics from that unit. And question 1, remember, is worth 55% of your grade. Now, question 2 is only worth 45% of your total score. And you'll have 15 minutes to answer this one. Here, though, you're only given one stimulus set. So it'll be one map or a data set or a table or chart or infograph. So there's less information to look at for this question, but you also have less time. So this year, the AP test is just 2 FRQs, no multiple choice, nothing else. And the other thing that they're changing too is define and identify are not going to be on the test. Those are things you can just Google, so don't worry about those task verbs. Now, one question I've been getting a lot in the live streams is, well, what units should I focus on? Units 1 through 5 are all important. College Board has stated that the AP test is going to have 2 primary questions, one from each unit. That makes sense. We have 2 questions. However, within those questions, they're going to connect to each of the 5 units. Their goal is to try and present you with a bunch of different opportunities to show your full knowledge. And so you're going to want to study all of the different units. Don't just focus on unit 1 or unit 2. You need to have a good understanding of all 5 of the units. Okay, now that we've quickly gone over how the FRQs are going to look, let's take a minute and talk about the task verbs. These are going to be really important for you to understand. Now, to start off, remember, identify and define, not on this year's test. So we're not going to worry about them this year. Let's start talking about compare. Now, when you see a question that's asking you to compare something, remember, you can't just define it. You can't just describe the 2 items separately. You have to talk about the relationship between them. Talk about the similarities, the differences. That is important. Compare questions are trying to see, can you take 2 different items or situations and show how they have similarities and differences? How do they overlap? What is the relationship between the 2? So it's important that these questions have 2 parts to your answer, and you're connecting them to both things that the question's talking about. Don't talk about them separately. Show how they are interconnected. That's going to be important to get the full points for a compare question. For describe questions, College Board is trying to see not can you define the concept or whatever topic is being presented to you. They're trying to see, do you understand how all these different characteristics of that concept work, how they're connected? How does this event or concept happen? You're trying to describe relative characteristics for that concept. And if you can provide a real world example, great. Make sure to do that. But when you're doing that too, make sure it connects back to the concept. Here you want a couple of sentences to show your understanding. This should not just be one sentence and you're just writing the definition down. Again, you're wanting to highlight the characteristics of the topic that is being asked of you. Now, when you get an explain question on this year's test, and you will get an explain question on the test, you're going to want to be able to provide information on why a process or a pattern or a relationship or an outcome occurred. Here you want to use evidence or reasoning and logic. Your goal here is to show the reader you have a full understanding of this concept. Explain questions are going to require the most length, and here you want to connect to real world events sense and make sure that whoever's reading your test, they know you know what you're talking about. Now, since we're talking about explain, I want to make sure you also know what to do if you see a question that says explain the degree of. This is going to be important for you to understand because odds are you're going to see a question like this. And if you do, you have to answer it differently than if you just saw an explain question. Otherwise, if you answer it the same, you're not going to get full points for that question. When you see a question that says explain the degree, think kind of back to a compare question. Explain the degree questions will have two parts. You're going to want to talk about how it works and how it doesn't work. I think the easiest way actually to understand what to do for explain the degree questions is to look at an example. Let's say you have a question that says explain the degree in which Ravenstein's laws of migration apply to the world today. Here the question is asking you for two things. To fully explain to the degree, we have to make sure that you're explaining why the model is working today and how these 11 laws are still applied to society, but you would also have to explain why they're not. And that gets to another kind of tip with explain questions. A lot of times you're stating something and then you'll have a because. And the because then you're going to explain why your statement is right. So you can use that for the degree or if it's just a normal explain question. Okay, so we've talked now about the format and we've also talked about the task verbs. Now we also need to talk just a little bit about what you need to do when you first open your test. First thing you do is not go to the question, but you read the prompt, that statement. Then you look at the table, you look at the map, break it down. Once you have an understanding of it, then go to the question and then start answering and figuring things out. This will prevent you from making some easy mistakes. Another thing to make sure you don't do too is, well, panic. If you don't know a certain word or if you don't know a certain concept, take a minute, look around the test. Maybe there's some other clues that could hint at it. Now, when answering your questions too, make sure you understand that the reader who's going to be reading your test and grading it, they can't ask you follow-up questions. So make sure you finish your thoughts. You want to make sure that they understand when they're reading your work that you knew exactly what you're talking about. They don't have time to be able to ask you another question to get you to elaborate more. So make sure you have enough information that shows that you've answered the question. On the other hand, though, too, remember time is limited here. So just focus on answering what the question is presenting to you. And that's why it's important to understand these task verbs, so you know exactly what to say. Remember, you can do this. This year, yes, we're at home taking these tests and we're doing it online, but it's just a test. You can do it. You've taken plenty of tests before. This video was to refresh your mind on those task verbs and give you a little bit of clarity on maybe what the test format's going to be like. Hopefully it helped you out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you'll get notified when I post more videos. Thank you so much for the support, geographers. Have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and remember, like I've said before in the video, you can do this. We're going to rock this AP test. You're going to be able to succeed. Believe in yourself, geographers. All right, I'm Mr. Sin, and until next time, I'll see you online.